Hello, everybody. I hope you are all well. Noise here, sorry. Yeah, I hope that's working. Yes, perfect. Excellent. Good evening, everybody, and I hope you are all well. It is lovely to see that so many people are logged in this evening. And I am so happy to see everybody here for our first ParkHouseConnects for this academic year. So I do consider this ParkHouseConnects as one of our most important to start the year safeguarding and child protection at our school. So hopefully this evening will be really informative. I'll give you lots of information about how we're keeping the children safe at Park House, what we do as a school, but also what you can do as parents and carers to also support that. There we go, perfect. Right, so staff safeguarding at Park House, we have obviously a company that own us and oversee what we're doing, and they are called ISP, International Schools Partnership, and they are based in the UK, and they have a team, a dedicated safeguarding team, and what they do is they oversee what we are doing. So they will ensure that they hold us to account. The DSLs in our school, the designated safeguard leads, who are myself and Rebecca Saunders, the head of secondary, we have to report into them every single term. They come and do inspections of us, etc. If there were situations in relation to safeguarding that we felt like we needed external advice and support, they are also there for that as well. We've obviously also got the principal, so the principal is available for any designated safeguarding issues, but they would usually go to the principal if we as a designated safeguard leads feel that we needed somebody to move them up to. And then in our school, we obviously have two main designated safeguards leads, which is me, Mrs. Hilton, and then Mrs. Saunders, who is the head of secondary. And then in a moment, I'm also going to show you who all of the deputy safeguarding leads are in the school as well. All of us are responsible for taking any reporting and reporting them, and we sit down as a team as well to discuss any issues within the school that we may or may not be concerned about. So what is safeguarding? Because I can imagine that some of you are logged in and thinking, well, actually, what is this and what does this look like? So at Park House, safeguarding is ensuring that we are creating a culture of safety, okay, for the children. And it's about us making sure that we're promoting the welfare, everybody within the school community, so that is the staff as well as all of the parents, carers and anyone else that's involved with our children, do understand that is their responsibility, and the children are their responsibility. Everyone within that community takes responsibility for caring for our children. So that's anybody that comes into contact with our children, that includes full-time staff on site, but anybody that may come in as external providers, as well as people that may work full-time, part-time, whether it's a teacher, whether it's somebody in the security team, whether it's someone in the admin team. Every single person within the Park House community is responsible for the welfare of our children and ensure that the best interests of all of our children are at the heart and decisions of everything that we do. So moving on a little bit then, because there is quite a significant difference between safeguarding and child protection. It's really important that I make sure that I explain this to you. Right, so if we start with safeguarding, which is the stage that we really want to be in, okay, because safeguarding is us being proactive. We have a number of things that we put in place in order to ensure that children are safe. So these are things like having policies and procedures in place. That includes things like our safeguarding policy, which is on our school website, but things like health and safety, making sure people are trained, making sure the building is compliant and, you know, is fit for purpose, making sure that we are as inclusive as possible and making sure that we're catering to the needs of all of our children as well as our staff. I will go over something called whistleblowing and what that looks like and what allegations of staff look like as well. We also have a really strict safer recruitment process, and that is to ensure that anybody that we employ to come on site to work with our staff are safe and have been checked. So because I know that some parents may get quite frustrated if we haven't got staff in place straight away and things like that. It's because we go through a really rigorous process in order to keep children safe, and for us that's the first priority before we think about and move on to anything else that we do. We've obviously had a big rise in online safety and awareness of online safety. It was there before, but it's even more evident now during the COVID period. And now that we are actually really using online, I suppose, tools in a much more, I suppose, exposed way, especially for our children at home. And there's things that you can also do in order to keep them safe too. And then things like attendance. And I will go through that in terms of what we're doing in a school and what we're moving forward with. And then we obviously move into child protection, and unfortunately child protection is usually reactive, so reacting to something that has happened. So it could be, I don't know, a child is neglected or abused or whatever it might be, and us as a school, it's either reported to us externally, internally, we've seen things, and then we have to react to it. So it's usually when a child is in any type of harm, but could also go on to significant harm. At points like this, sometimes it's something that's dealt with in school internally. We may be needing to speak to parents, but sometimes it could go externally where we're eventually reporting things to the police, for example. Okay. So safeguarding is being proactive, and then child protection is being reactive to situations. When we talk about safeguarding, there are a number of different titles that we incorporate within this, okay, because we are talking about keeping children safe. Now, one of the most common things that we talk about is bullying. Now, the next few slides that I'm about to show you are slides that we also share in assemblies with our children, because we ensure that they are also aware of what safeguarding is, the kinds of situations that they might find themselves in, where they possibly find themselves a little bit worried, a kinds of situation, and that could be in school, out of school, and things that they can come and talk to people about. And I'll talk to you about the stuff that we have at the site in relation to that. So bullying. Bullying is one of the most common things that we may talk about with children. We recognise in conversations that we have with parents in relation to safeguarding. Now, what we do need to clarify in is bullying and what it is, because bullying is extremely serious. If you go onto our school website, you will see that we have a bullying policy there and what our processes and procedures are. What we also need parents, carers and children to understand that bullying is something that is continuous and it's happening again and again and again. So this isn't one-off incidents. We also obviously deal with any one-off incidents if a child's been pushed over or there's been an argument or, you know, a child feels upset about something. Absolutely, we deal with that in relation to our behaviour, and we've got a behaviour policy. But bullying is something aside to that, and this is something that's continuous. And so we take different processes and procedures for that. Our policy is obviously online, just like I've said, but the bullying is something that can be really, really serious and can result in obviously different reactions by children and different reactions by adults, because this can be something where it's adult and adult as well. So we also potentially could get involved in something like that if it was a parent, a member of staff or something like that. Okay, but just so you're aware that bullying comes under that category of safeguarding when we're dealing with it as well in terms of seriousness. Then the next thing that we share with the children is neglect and what neglect is. And we do explain to children what neglect looks like. So this is the exact clip that I put onto the PowerPoint that I use with the children. And I say neglect is when a parent or carer doesn't look after a child properly. And then I give them examples. You know, they might not have enough food or drink, the right clothing, for example. So clothes that are too much in the heat or too little in the cold. You know, if children are left at home for too long, etc. So I did address this quite a bit during COVID and when we were on lockdown, and explained to children, you know, if they were in year 2, 3, 4, they shouldn't be left at home for significant periods of time on their own. And if they were, they needed to let us know. And any situations like that, for example, I was contacting parents. I am very careful about explaining this to children as well, because things like not giving them enough food younger children do tend to go, oh yeah, but I wanted a Nutella sandwich and I didn't get that, so that might be that. So I do go through, you know, what it looks like, and our parents trying to keep us healthy and not giving us these kinds of things that we want isn't neglect. Actually, that's them caring for us in the same way and making sure that we are kept fit and healthy. So just so you're aware of that as well. The next slide I share with the children is about physical abuse. We talk to the children about if adults deliberately hurt a child's body. We give them examples of hitting, kicking, punching and biting, shaking, etc. Anything that may or may not leave a mark, and anything that hurts them, that they understand that that is physical abuse and it's something that shouldn't be happening. As a school, we are also very aware that here in Qatar, everyone parents their children differently, but parents are also very aware of what our expectations from Park House are, and if incidents like this do come up, we do have conversations with parents, and we obviously talk about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, you know, how can we also think about disciplining our children in different ways, etc. Just as an aside to this, we will start things like parenting classes and conversations with parents, and as the year goes on as well, so we can start talking about different ways of disciplining our children, you know, that do not involve physical abuse and things like that. And then we also talk about emotional abuse, and this is really important for adults to understand as well, because actually emotional abuse is something that has a major impact on our children, but we don't necessarily think that some of the things that we're saying or doing is harming them because we think we're supporting them. So things like putting extra pressure on them about exam results and things like that. Obviously, as parents, we have high expectations, so we want that to happen. But things like, you're stupid, you're not bright, you're this, you're that. This, sometimes we've had to deal with those kinds of conversations that have been had with children, and how that impacts them on the long term as well. So anything we're calling names, making fun of, comparing children, that can cause emotional abuse for children as well. And they're also aware that it hurts children on the inside, so that physical on the outside and the emotional is on the inside. We also talk to them about seeing and hearing parents or carers hurting each other at home, and those things also make them feel bad. So any kind of domestic violence at home and things like that. Obviously, we word it like this for children, but parents also need to be aware that that can impact on children emotionally, and they will come into school and talk about, do you know what, this is what's making me feel really sad at the moment. Okay, so we've obviously just spoken there about a number of things that can come up in school, and obviously as a safeguarding lead, whether it be me, whether it be Mrs. Saunders, whether it be any of the deputies that I'll show you pictures of in a moment, we also have a number of staff on site that are also there to support the children. We have a school counsellor on site, a full-time school counsellor. She is new this year and she will be doing a session in a couple of weeks, so please look out for that, because she will introduce herself and also explain the kinds of work that she has. She does. We also then have a part-time wellbeing officer. She's also on site as well, part-time. She is really familiar with the children because she was here last year, and she works with the children as well. And then obviously we have our school nurses if there are any concerns in relation to anything medical as well. So that's how we would deal with any of those situations. It wouldn't be right, it's reported to me, we report it to the police, and then it's left. We potentially would refer them to our counsellor if we had concerns there, or we potentially could contact outside agencies, because in Qatar, luckily, we do have a number of agencies that we can contact. We've got links at Stidra Hospital, we've got links with CAMS, and all of those outside agencies provide support for us and provide support for children and parents as well. So if I talk to you then about the expectations we have from staff, just so you're aware as well. So we're really clear with our staff about what they can and can't do in terms of school, in terms of outside school, and how they should also conduct themselves as well. So photography and videos, and this is the exact slide I share with staff. And they're very aware that there should be no real images taken of children one-to-one and in one-to-one situations with no surrounding contexts. The reason for things like that is those pictures can be pulled and then used and then put onto other things outside of our facility. So we make sure that we try to make sure that backgrounds and lots of children depending on situations. In our school, no staff will be using personal mobile devices to take any pictures of any children across the school. Any images that are taken with our school devices, so you're aware of that. So this will be things like going on trips as well. The staff have iPads, and I'll talk to you about parents and things like that and what can and can't be done. All of the equipment that's used in terms of technology is provided by the school to ensure that there's safety. Anything that the staff members use, it can be logged in externally through our IT services. So that's our emails, everything that I do online. IT can log in and see everything I've done, all of the conversations I've had, etc., because everything's gone through our school system. And when we are taking images and things like that of children, we always, when you've come to the school, we've sought permission from you already, whether we can use your children's images. Some parents say no, some parents say yes, some parents say yes, but only within the school, etc. And we make sure that we follow all of that. And then the use of technology and what our expectations are from staff. So the staff are really aware that there should be no use of social media with any children and parents. Now, I am very, very aware that some of the parents in school are also friends with people outside of the school. Lots of the teachers will say, look, please do not share my images on your own social media, etc. And just as an external parent that is in the school, please respect that. It is what's expected from them, and it's not fair. You could be, out at the beach, and then their image is shared. Other parents and children would see it and it's inappropriate. So if they do say things like that, just understand that obviously when you're working with children, there are some expectations and things that we know that we can and can't do. All staff are expected to make sure that all of their settings on any of their social media is kept private. You are not allowed to communicate with them via their private social media and vice versa. So even the other day, somebody had tried to contact me via my Twitter from school. I haven't responded to that because everybody knows that you should be communicating with us via email. And that's just the way it is. We don't have any social media links because internally our IT cannot get hold of any of those messages and look at them if there were any concerns. So we make sure that all communication is done through those platforms. Again, the same thing, no mobile apps and things like that, and personal details shouldn't be given to any children as well. So just so you're aware of that. Things like parents' meetings are recorded from a safeguarding perspective as well. They're kept and stored so nobody else can access them. But just so you're aware that we do make sure that we record all of those from safeguarding perspective. And just a little bit of information about Teams and how Teams is used within the school. So all of your children have a Teams login. We did start to change the Teams login. So as your child's come into the school, either new and definitely for the earlier years in the school, the email address has changed from having the child's first name dot surname and then their email address to a number and then initials. The reason for that is when we had things like recordings, names were coming up, and obviously we do not want to give out children's full names on anything. So we would only ever use children's first names on anything that went out if they did go out at all. And that was literally just on the Teams recordings. What we did do if we had a child with the same name is we'd just give an initial or a number. So it would be Tom 1, Tom 2, for example. When we set up Teams, we make sure there is a lobby, so the children just can't start the meetings before all of the staff, etc. And these were all learning curves as we went on and started to develop our own use of technology. Teachers were always recording all interactions with any of the students, and only the teachers were allowed to be presenters unless they handed it over to specific children to be able to present as well, so you're aware of that. And then a couple of things that we expect from you, and now we are getting into a stage where we can have trips and things more, start parents on site a little bit more. There are definitely a few things that I just need to make you aware of, things that if anybody said anything to you, you understand why we are asking or saying the things that we're saying. So images of children. Things like taking pictures of children in the playground, sharing them in any other way other than your own personal child should not happen unless you have actually got permission from a parent, because what we have had is situations where a parent's taken pictures, uploaded it to a WhatsApp group, other parents have said, hang on a minute, I haven't given permission for that person to share it, then it's gone on a Facebook group and things like that, and it just is an invasion of other people's privacy, but also the security of other people's children. So please, I would say, you know, if you are going to share anything, even in your WhatsApp groups, please seek permission from some of the parents, but I would avoid doing it other than taking pictures of your own child. Now, this also includes things like going on trips, etc. So where we invite parents to come on trips, obviously you may want to take a picture of your individual child, but you shouldn't be taking images of anybody else's child. The teachers take lots and lots of pictures on all of the iPads and things, and then they will be able to share it with parents, you know, via Teams and things like that. Parents' meetings are recorded, just like before. Parents, please do not use children's Teams accounts to communicate. I will give you an example that has happened literally this week. A parent has messaged a teacher about their child, support that their child needed, for example. The parent has accidentally typed in a surname of a parent, but that surname is quite common in our school, and has actually sent it to a child. So the child has received quite sensitive information about a child in our school. Now, thankfully, that child was really sensible and said, oh, I've got a message here. It doesn't look like it should have been for me. And we've been able to intercept it and delete it and have conversations. But there should be no communication via Teams to the teachers. All communication to teachers should happen via email. The Teams is for the children to communicate about any work and things like that. So, for example, in the primary school, we're doing student elections. The children have been told to message me directly if they're interested in things, for example. Another thing that we've kind of noticed and would be really helpful is, can you please inform us of any changes? That would include contact details. You can change them and engage yourself, actually, but sometimes we've only got the contact detail of one parent, and then when we need to call them if there's an emergency for medical things, we've tried to contact and we can't. Ideally, we need 2 phone numbers because that's really helpful. We've got other people to contact. Changes to medical needs, even if it's only temporary changes, is really important. Know that. If they do break a limb, please let us know before you bring your children into school, because if a child does break an arm or a leg, they will be assessed by the nurse and taught how to walk around or travel around the school safely. We then know, so if they're on the top floor, if there was a fire emergency, we've got evac chairs that we would get the children out, but security would be aware of them and they would go and do that rather than the teacher being responsible for that, because the teacher needs to be responsible for the rest of the children in the class. So all of these things are really, really important, and it may seem really simple at the time, but actually it's about us making sure that the children are safe. So any changes to circumstance, you know, if we've had situations where maybe mum's gone off to have a baby and she's in another country for a couple of months or whatever like that, let us know, because absolutely it does have an impact on the children, even if it's just a little thing where we just need to give a little bit of extra care or have conversations with them. It's really important for us to know any of those changes. And then trips and support in school, like I've said, obviously these are coming up more often. We will give you documents if you are coming into school to support with anything. We will also ask you to complete the reading of what we have is a visitor safeguarding piece of information. It tells you some of the information similar to what I've told you here. We will then ask you to sign to say that you have actually seen this information and you know who to report any concerns to if you see anything that concerns you. If you come onto our site, you will also be given lanyard. I've just hidden my lanyard somewhere there. So all of the staff wear a green lanyard around their neck. They have a little tag. That tag allows them to access our doors. Our doors are security locked between specific times of the day so that people can't come on our site or children can't leave the site as well. But if you're a visitor, and different visitors have different coloured lanyards depending on whether you've got police checks and things with us. But if you're a visitor, so if you're a parent or if you're an external visitor, you would usually get a red lanyard. At the moment, you've been getting red stickers. You will now, as of next week, as soon as they come in, get red lanyards. Please put them on and keep them on. You know, we were giving parents stickers, they're putting them on their hands, they're putting them all over the place. They're stickers that come off, they don't ruin clothes. The reason they are there, so we can notice that we have got a visitor in the school. If any of our members of staff see anyone wandering around and they don't have a lanyard or a sticker on, they will challenge you, as they should do. Yeah. Now, this is obviously during the normal school day and things like that. At the end of the day, we have the staff posted all around the school, monitoring what's going on with children, etc. Okay. If you are a regular visitor to the school, so things like class links and a parent association, etc., you will have read one of our pieces of document. You'll sign a form and you'll be given a different lanyard which says actually you have a bit more of a clarity around safeguarding and what it looks like in our school, and so no one needs to monitor. You will always have a member of staff with you if you are ever working with children, whether it be, you know, extra support with guided reading or stuff like that. But we also know that you've had some training and you're very aware of who you need to report things to. Okay. So that's that in relation to the lanyards. Okay, perfect. Okay, so just so you're aware as well, so one of the requirements in you know, most schools, to be fair, is to ensure that all staff are safeguard trained. So in our school, every single member of staff, security, lifeguard, everybody is safeguard trained. So they have safeguard training from me that I deliver in the beginning of the year. They have to sign to say that they've had that safeguard training. What they also then have to do in addition to that is do a 3 to 4 hour online course on safeguarding that goes into more depth about things like neglect and physical abuse, examples of it where it's happened in schools and other facilities where there have been children, what's been put in place and the changes that have been put in place for that. So that's every single member of staff has that training. The designated safeguard leads and then the deputy designated safeguard leads have additional training. It depends. It can be an intensive 3-day course. It could be over 8 weeks. It's extensive. You do lots and lots of training. You have lots and lots of discussions as a group, and then you have to do assessments following that as well. So the message that we, I suppose, deliver to the staff, but also deliver to you is be alert to any concern. If it feels wrong, it probably is, and we ask the staff to trust their gut. As far as I'm concerned, anything that is reported to us as a designated safeguard lead is investigated. We will do an internal investigation. Sometimes we may need to involve people externally. If somebody hasn't done anything wrong, then they have nothing to worry about. So I do not want a situation where people are reluctant to report something because they're like, oh, I don't want to get that person in trouble just in case, or I'm worried about this, but I'm not too sure. Please report it, and then we will then deal with it following that. There are also lots of things externally at the moment. There is the phone number, I think it's 191 here. I do need to clarify that. And I know that one of the other schools here in Qatar had them call them the other day because a member of the public, another parent in the school, was really concerned about a child in their school. And for me, that was amazing because I knew that that system was working. They were contacted, they contacted the school, and then they treated that like a safeguarding incident, and people were involved externally. I think the hospitals had been involved in making sure that that child was safe. For us, we base everything around best practice, and we use a number of guidances. One of them is the UK government's Keeping Children Safe in Education. That's available literally online. You can see that, and you can see the documentation and guidance from that. We have the Visitor Safeguarding booklet, which I've just said to you. It's at the front with Dorina in reception if you ever want to have a look at it. But if you are ever coming on site for a significant amount of time, not just like paying accounts or whatever, you will be asked to read that and then fill that out. So I know that we've got parent helpers coming in a couple of weeks in the primary, for example, that come in to do some book wrapping and things like that. They will be reading those before they're allowed on site to work with our children. And then we have our safeguarding policy, which is on our school website. So please make sure that you go and have a look at that. So reporting a concern from a parent and guardian perspective, the easiest way to report a concern is to report a concern via our safeguarding emails, safeguarding@parkhouseschool.com. That email address links to all of the safeguarding leads, the designated safeguarding leads, and so we will all get that email if there is a concern. We have a paper form that we also may ask people to complete. So I did have a situation last year where a parent came in, they said, look, Mrs. Hilton, I'm really concerned about this. We sat down, I got them to fill out that. We then investigated and dealt with that as that needed to be. Within the school, we now also have the Safeguarding Company, which is a system, an online system called My Concern. What's really good about this now internally, if we make a report, it's done electronically. If it's siblings, they all link, you know, we can start to build a picture. If there's lots of reports from lots of different areas, sometimes someone in secondary reports someone, sometimes someone in primary reports someone, and rather than this paper trail and us, we obviously meet and we have these discussions, but having it electronic means it flags it a lot quicker for us, rather than us having to put all of our heads together and work out stories sometimes. So that is the email address that you can report any concerns to. So like I said, I'd show you a little picture here of all of the safeguarding leads because we love sharing our pictures. So you have me there as a DSL, you have Rebecca Saunders as a DSL. And then the other leads across the school, Mrs. Stewart, who is a deputy, and the deputy head of primary school. You've got Olivia Mason, who is new to our team this year, and she is one of our assistant heads in secondary. Michael McDonald has obviously been here for a long time, but he's now one of the secondary assistant heads. And then you've got Claire Sharkey, who is also the executive assistant to Mr. Smith. And so we've got people kind of posted in all areas just to ensure that we have really good coverage across the school if there are any concerns at all. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to talk about in terms of things that have come up over the last couple of weeks, I suppose, that I felt that I wanted to just speak to parents about in terms of safeguarding. So the front of the school in the mornings is one of them. Obviously, we understand the traffic, etc., etc. But what we have been doing is making sure that we open up those gates at 7 o'clock. We have a couple of clubs that start at 6:45, and those members of staff that are responsible for that club will come to the front of the school, take all of those children that are in those clubs, register them, and bring them into the school at 6:45 to start those clubs. At 7 o'clock, children are allowed on site. What I have noticed recently is we have some children coming to school exceptionally early. I understand a few minutes before 7 o'clock, but having children outside the front of the school at 6:25, 6:30, etc., it means that they are unsupervised at the front of our school. Our security guards are in their base, but they are not there supervising the children at that time. So I've had to give a call to quite a few of the parents and just said, look, this really isn't safe, because obviously they're at the front of the school, they're not supervised by members of staff. So please, parents, just be aware of that. Please think about how you're managing that as well. To be fair, some of the parents I spoke to were like, oh it was my driver, I'm really sorry, I'll get that sorted out, and they've been absolutely immediate in terms of response to that. A couple of parents in relation to ECAs have just said, well, can't my child just stay on site, etc. And what I will say to you is we make sure that our site is really safe. So we keep children supervised at all times. Things can happen all of the time. They can fall down, they can trip, if they're in a corner somewhere and they're not being supervised by an adult, it might not be that someone walks past them and we don't know how long they've been there. Hence the reason why we make sure that they are supervised all of the time. So just be aware that when they are on our site, they will be supervised, but please, leaving them outside of the school, they will not necessarily be supervised, and we want to keep children safe. Having discussions about children being picked up and how they're picked up. Obviously, we've had lots of concerns being raised following the incident of the child a couple of days ago, being left on a bus. And so things like sending really young children home in Ubers on their own. For example, if I know about this, I will call a parent and I'm saying, no, please, can you come and collect your child? You know, we can't leave children going off with strangers effectively. I just, you know, if you've got your designated drivers and designated bus drivers, that's absolutely fine. But random Ubers for little children, we need to keep an eye on that. What we have also got in the school is, I'm sure all of you are aware of Engage and what Engage looks like, because that's where you get your reports. What we also have is a system on there that we are aware of now, that if a child is marked in absent, we should be able to now get an automatic text to parents. So in the case of the child the other day, where that child had been absent and the parent wasn't aware, we are literally just finalising and looking into how we could effectively flip that switch in our system so that parents will get a text message home to say if their child is absent. Because then if the parent has sent a child to school, they can say, well, hang on a minute, I've sent my child to school, why has my child been marked in absent? Or they're aware that their child's absent, and then they'll be getting that text message. So just so you're aware of that, we're absolutely on it, and I have spoken to a couple of parents about that over the last couple of days. Okay, so we do now have an opportunity to ask questions. There is a question bar there for you, so please write any questions in there that you may have for me, and then I will respond to them. I'm going to remove my face and I'll respond to any questions that you have. You will still hear my voice. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so one of the questions I've just had is, how can I report a dangerous situation during pickup or drop-off time? So what I will say here is there is two things here. One might be, if there has been a very specific incident, obviously you just need to email that safeguarding@parkhouseschool.com. If it's in relation to something like cars driving over bollards and things like that, what I do also need parents to understand is a couple of things. We obviously have our security guards outside trying to manage traffic as much as we can. We are not the traffic police, and we do not have any jurisdiction outside of our school. So we ask parents to help things, and to like not do things, but we only have so much control because it's obviously not in our school site, it's on a public road. So we try our best. We've obviously asked for the traffic police to be there, and they are there. So if you have concerns specifically about some of the way the drivers are behaving, the best thing is to speak to the traffic police in some of those incidents. But if it's in relation to something that's happened in relation to our children, our school, our parents, that we can deal with within the school, then absolutely please report that to the Safeguarding website. One of the things that I can do is do things like send out messages generically to parents in the weekly notices and things like that. I can absolutely do that, but I wouldn't know specifically what it is. So if you send a message to the Safeguarding email address that I gave earlier, hopefully we'll be able to respond to that. So somebody's just said, can we report if it's the plate number? I mean, it really is dependent on, I mean, we don't have the plate numbers of parents, for example. So, you know, if it was a specific parent in the school and you knew who it was and you could tell us, I could obviously have a conversation about safety. But yeah, the best thing is in relation to the traffic police, because it's yeah, it's quite challenging outside of the school in terms of that. Obviously, like, we are monitoring and making sure the children are safe crossing the roads and things like that. But yeah, I know that there can be some parents, and not only from our school, from other schools and stuff, that maybe behave in a way that's not the most appropriate. And so we try our best to make sure that our security has managed as much as possible. But again, because it's a public place, we don't really have that much control, unfortunately. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, excellent. I think that might be the end of the questions then. So thank you for everybody that attended this evening. If you know somebody that didn't manage to attend, don't worry, I will be posting this on, well, I won't be posting this, Miss Wendy Campbell will be posting this on our website for everybody. Again, thank you for attending our first Park House of the year. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and I will hopefully see you the next couple of days, weeks, etc. Thank you. Bye.